Through the white thunderstorms, we ride on the back of our clock cars in a fearless ride. Sons of gold, hearts made of fire, conquering lands, fueling our desires. Roaring engines and lightning in our eyes. United we stand, our strength won't compromise. From the east to the west, we sail, we roll with our warriors. Never feel alone, last kiss of freedom. Beneath open skies, the promised land where our spirits arise. We battle the storms and tides of the sea. Now we've arrived in the land we're meant to be.
Vikings, good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is another Saturday morning cartoons of the DragonShip. And I have to say right now, I have to take ownership. I've failed you. We are 20 minutes late today because I am putzing around. So by taking that extreme ownership right there leads us into the topic of today, which is extreme ownership. I don't know if you guys have ever read the book, but extreme ownership is about how Navy SEALs function to be the best leaders possible and how teams win. And I really wanted to break it down because this is the type of information that is helpful for you, not just in your personal life, but your professional life, in your relationships, how to be a better father. It is absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, let's go around the horn. Tarl, what's going on?
Not much, man. Just planning and living the dream.
Good stuff. And you're well versed in this book, right?
Yeah, I've listened to the audiobook twice now. So a few weeks ago, I had to re-listen to it because I'm just like, I need to make sure that I'm following a lot of these principles because of, like you said, my family and stuff like that. My son's about to go into puberty, so I got to be on point.
Oh boy, that's gonna be fun. Good luck with that. At least it's not a daughter going into puberty. I hear those are a little bit more difficult to deal with. All right, Vidar, how you doing, brother? You're on mute right now.
Let me unmute myself. Thank you. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. And I'm a little familiar with this. Familiar with the principles anyway. My company a few years ago decided their corporation was going to take on some of this extreme ownership. And this company I work for is a Fortune 500 company that whenever they take on a corporate campaign, they never get the real gist of it. They always twist it a little bit and lose all meanings. But there was a while there that they were trying to push this. And it really came down to the leaders wanting the employees to take ownership on everything.
Yeah, you do both the management and the work, please.
Exactly. So,
well, to be fair, Jocko does talk about leading up and down the chain of command. So,
but you have to have a good leader.
Yeah.
You know, when the leadership themselves aren't taking responsibility, they aren't owning it themselves and pushing it off. Well, it was my team's fault. They didn't follow my instructions. That's
we're doing it wrong. They're not doing it correctly.
Which is completely backwards to what Jocko teaches, which is there's no bad teams, there's only bad leaders.
Exactly.
And if your team didn't get the mission accomplished, it's because you didn't articulate it properly, as the leader. Yeah.
Yep.
I can't wait to get into some of these examples because that's the exact reason why I got fired from my last job. But we'll get into that later. Paul, how are you doing?
Man, this is actually one of my favorite books of all time. It's what I would consider a life-changing book, and it's so much so that it's chapter 8 in My Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence, which is all about paradigms in leadership. Yeah, Paradigms in Leadership. It's all from Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink. And so, yeah, one of the quotes at the beginning is the most fundamental and important truth at the heart of extreme ownership. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And I take that to heart because, at my day job, a lot of people don't know this, but I basically work 3 jobs now, right? I'm a men's coach, I'm a podcast host, and I also am a director, an IT director. And if my team's fucking up, I take full responsibility for it. Like, I'm the one that's not properly engaged with the team to lead them to where they need to be, and I really fundamentally believe that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I can't wait to dive into it because it really is. It's so interesting how I was talking before, like backstage, like in the studio, about all the different teams I've been in during like my corporate life, and the team I'm in now, he exemplifies everything that is discussed in this book, and I've never been on a team like that before, and it is just so fluid and so fantastic. Awesome. Thor, how are we doing?
We're doing okay, man. Thanks for asking. Appreciate that. Glad to be here and see you guys.
Absolutely. And I mean, speaking of good leaders, you're the leader of the DragonShip, and I just, I'm blessed to be a part of this, and that's why we've grown, and that's why we've done so well, and that's why we have such great discussions, because you have led us in the right way. So I appreciate you, man.
Well, thank you, man. It's all you guys bring a nice spark of brilliance into my life, so that's a good thing, and it always comes back to you, and it does double fold. So this whole concept of extreme ownership, I read the book many years ago when it came out, and it's very good. One of my biggest contractors that I was managing when I was still working was they brought both those guys in to go ahead and put them through the leadership program, extreme ownership. And they still adhere to those principles today. And that really changed that contractor from a kind of our low end contractor to our top end contractor. And it was the leadership at the top that accepted responsibility for whatever actions their subordinates did. That's really the key. And for some reason, that and the ability to pick out folks that were trouble and then bring them into leadership. And it seems like they were able to rise and meet the challenge. For sure. I mean, the biggest principle that's not necessarily this book, but I write about it, is Jocko did a video, and one of the principles in there was good. Any failure that happens, anything good that happens, he would always say good. And he'd say that to his troops. And the video is still up on YouTube. His subordinates asked him, why do you always say good when we fail and when it's all messed up? And, leadership has failed, and you say good. He goes, well, because, good, because now that you failed, you have more opportunity to train, refit, and get back in the fight. It's also good that you can now assess the situation, and you can take actions that you wouldn't have been able to before had you had succeeded and bypassed it. And then when things really go awry, you wouldn't have had the experience. So every failure, every crash, every one of those things that come up in life, it's good, because, if I'm feeling a little tired and I take a nap, well, good, because now I can take a little extra long nap and get up and have more energy. So there's always an opportunity when things fail or things aren't going your way. You should tell yourself good, and then look for the opportunity that comes out of that is good. Maybe it's down the line. Maybe what happened to you is not good at the moment, but it would serve a greater purpose in the long run. That's what you search for. His video on good is amazing, and I suggest everybody look at it. And those principles are lined out in the book, so I love it. That one's one of the best ones I've ever seen, and I put that into my daily operations as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a determination mindset, right? You're not going to let, because it goes back to what I was saying last week about the perspective of the half full glass, right? Is it half empty or half full? No, it's both. And it's about your perspective and how you perceive the difficulty and how you choose to tackle the difficulty that sets you apart as a man. Because if you just say, oh no, there's a wall in front of me, how do I overcome this obstacle? There's ways if you think about it. But if you automatically give up, you're never going to find a way to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Very true. Well, let's dive into the discussion. I want to kind of like break some of these things apart. And I'm going to start with the example I was talking about where, yes, I got fired from my last job. Why did I get fired from my last job? Well, when my boss ended up leaving because he was having a lot of difficulties with upper management there, because it essentially was handed down. The company was handed down to somebody who didn't make the company. It was just the company owner's son. So, I mean, whether he wanted to do it or not, who knows? And so, essentially, with this, it was a very interesting dynamic because you can almost imagine like somewhat like the bratty child type of thing where it's like my way or the highway. I don't know if it's just a base part of personality or what, but regardless, he was difficult to work with at times. So my boss ended up leaving. Then we got a new guy. New guy comes in. It's brand new. He's trying to figure everything out, and I have things just flowing. What I was in charge of, I was IT for warehouse and service. So all of our service technicians, I was in charge of them as well as in charge of everything working IT wise within the warehouse. And we had an update that had to come through for our shipping software. Okay, so vet the whole thing, like trying to understand it. Okay, yeah, no, this update sounds good. Let's go ahead and push it through, but let me verify with my boss. So it was a late day too. Like I didn't call him until I got in the car, which was 6:30 that night, and workday is supposed to end at 5. So lots of things going on, and I'm just trying to put out fires, trying to do the best I can possibly do. And so I call him and I tell him, hey, they want to push this forward. Do I have the green light to do so? He said yes. What happened from there was that when they pushed that update, what it did was it unchecked a flag that was used for verification in our website. And the guy that was in charge of the website, he had actually already left. He quit too. He had quit and moved on to a different company. And so nobody knew how to fix the problem. And we're all just like sitting there and it's like frantic problem solving until finally I remembered that there was a time that he had mentioned something about this. And so that's when I brought it up, and that's when we were able to figure it out. Now, my boss blamed me for the entire failure. And because of that, the guy up top was just like, nope, done. I can't do it anymore. And it's like, where is the ownership? I called you for confirmation that I could have them push this update. Where is the ownership here? And instead, I got blamed and kicked to the curb. And that's why, like, when we talk about leaders, they need to take full responsibility of their team. It's a piece of you. Yeah. And I want to hear from you guys and like kind of what some of your personal stories or experiences of being a leader and what that's kind of looked like, and what maybe even where you've like seen failure and ownership from other leaders and it's just been annoying as heck. And Toro, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, I actually echo a lot of the dynamics you were dealing with at that job. Sounds very similar to one of my last jobs where I was an operations manager of a combo school. So I was the operations manager for a cleaning crew that had been subcontracted in because they couldn't afford to basically pay the union janitors the full package, right? So they hired our company to come in to do a bulk of the main cleaning work that needed to be done on a 5-day-a-week basis, right? And the last two guys, they didn't follow the principle. The one principle the woman that contracted us said, the first thing she said to me when we sat down in her office for our first meeting was, just don't lie to me. Doesn't matter how, if things go wrong, if things get messed up, if you make mistakes, just don't lie to me. Tell me what the problem was, what happened, so we can solve it and make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. That's all that matters. And so I kind of was suspicious at this point about like my boss, because my boss had been telling me that it was all the other guys, the last two operations managers, that were the fuck up. And he told me it was because they were lying to her. right? And so as I'm going through the job, I'm figuring things out. And my boss took him 3 months before he actually got me a copy of the contract that had a list of all the duties we were actually supposed to be doing, that he himself had done the walkthrough for and gave the estimate for the contract. Well, it turned out he was having us, by depriving us of this information, it turned out he was the problem. He was the one advising me. The one criticism he had of me that was somewhat legitimate was that I was being too honest with the customer, even though that was our prime directive, is that we were going to lose the contract unless I was honest. That was literally the premise I was given. So I didn't have an option, because we would immediately lost the contract if I ever lied to that woman. I got caught in that lie. So I wasn't going to lie to her. My boss criticized me because I was just telling her what the fuck was happening like I was told to. But he wanted me, he couldn't say it directly, but he wanted me to lie to her. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I see what happened with the last 2 guys. You're the problem, right? And I can't hold him accountable, because once again, that's going to be me not taking accountability for my actions. So what do? I just continue to do the job. I won the contract and I locked in. That's a $250,000 contract for 2 years. And then they, because of how good I did in redoing the system and getting everything handled like it was supposed to per the contract, they hired us on for the other 2 schools in that district. And so I basically won that company. I saved that company, literally, according to my boss, because he said if that contract wasn't saved, we were going bankrupt. And then I saved that $250,000 contract and elected the $250,000 contract and saved it. Why? Because I didn't sit there and try to hold my boss accountable despite his inability to take accountability. I worked with the woman. I worked with her team. I worked with the teachers in the school and the people that we were getting that was constantly turning over because he had us perpetually short-staffed. The recommendation was 5 people, boots on the ground every night, and he was only giving us 3 to 4. Okay. And that included me. And I was supposed to be doing paperwork, but I ended up having to work the entire time because we were short-staffed. So once again, another display of bad leadership, but I learned a lot from that and confirms pretty much everything in that book.
Absolutely. And Are We Not Men is waiting for you to punch a 2x4 in half.
Yeah, he'll keep waiting. It's funny. That was a passing story I told about something my dad made me do. Like, why would I want some random dude on the internet is telling me to do the shit my dad made me do? What? Like, what the fuck? Come on, man.
Maybe it is your dad.
Nah.
No, it's good stuff. No, it's the exact same thing, and it's absolutely fantastic. Vidar, in your experience, like, when have you seen like either people not taking accountability or properly taking accountability when it comes to being a leader of a team?
Oh, where do I start? There's so many examples of negatives in the 30 years I've worked for this company. But what can you expect? I work for the railroad, and there's a saying that we have that holds true for the full 30 years. I was taught this the first couple days I worked there. It's called the first rule of railroading. And that first rule of railroading is common sense will not be tolerated. And that holds true. There is no common sense coming down from the top. Examples of they take these different corporate ideas like extreme ownership, and then they twist them around where, they play telephone with them. So by the time it gets down to the bottom, the full meaning and the full effectiveness is gone. So I have lots of examples of where it didn't take effect, but there's also examples where we all need to take extreme ownership in our lives, because you may even think, well, I'm not a leader. You are a leader. You're a leader of your own life. And when you are with yourself, you need to take ownership. And so some people don't even want to take ownership with themselves for things that have happened. But when you can take ownership and you can see that as good, as a failure is good, because now you have an opportunity. With that opportunity, you can make it great. And you're never going to hide from the higher powers that are there, the higher power. It's just not going to happen. You're not lying to them when you lie to yourself about not taking ownership. So in the very microcosm, you are a leader. So when you get into a work group, take leadership for your position in that. Also, as a leader, you'll see that people will recognize a leader. You can see a group of people, look at a group of guys that come into a room, or actually if you're at lunch and you see a big corporate group of guys, 4 or 5 guys come in, you'll see the one guy without them saying anything. You'll see the one guy that's the leader.
You'll see the leader. That's a really interesting dynamic. That's absolutely true.
So you can be that by taking charge, using the principles, and if your goal is to move up in the company, it'll absolutely happen. People will move out of the way for a good leader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Paul, I mean, you have to have some experience with this if you're a director in IT. So let's hear about your experiences.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about all the bosses I've had in the past. I've been pretty
PTSD flashbacks right now.
well. I've been pretty fortunate. I've had a lot of really good managers and directors that I've sort of looked at as mentors. So I haven't really had a lot of experience with bad leaders myself.
Well, let's talk about good ones.
Well, no. Well, let me because we like to fluff ourselves up on the show and talk about how fucking awesome we are because we're all fucking alpha males here, right? But let me take some extreme ownership and show you an example of what I did recently to accept extreme ownership. I had a guy last year who, near the end of the year, I was about ready to fire. I was about ready to fire this guy, and it wasn't because his performance was bad. It was because his attitude and getting along with other people wasn't the greatest. And one of the things that he said to me when I did the counseling session with him, when I was like, hey, look, if you don't clean this shit up, like we're gonna put you on, the track to get you out of here. Because I don't know what everybody else's company is like, but my company, you got to go through like 50 hoops and all this red tape to fire someone. It's
typically like a 3-step process or something, but they need to make sure they got everything documented. Yeah.
And so what happened was, so I had a counseling session with this guy. I was getting really frustrated with him. And I eventually got to a point where I was just like, look, we're not having a discussion about this. You need to clean your shit up, and I'm done talking about it, right? And ended up like ending it. And then I sent him like the documentation letter that said we had our counseling. This is what we talked about, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that he said to me in that discussion really, I started really thinking about, really dwelling on it. And it was that he goes, I get the impression that whenever I speak, you have a bias towards me. And he's like, and I think that's why you're misreading what I'm saying as negative or whatever. And right after he had this counseling session, this guy had major panic attacks, all this kind of stuff. And he ended up, his doctor gave him a medical note saying he needs a leave of absence for 3 months to work on his mental health or something. So he was gone for 3 months. We couldn't say anything about it because he had a medical note. And so he went on this leave of absence. But that whole 3 months, I just dwelled on that. Like, maybe he's right. Maybe I am being biased towards him, because when I see what he's saying in the chat, I immediately get annoyed by it, and it's not even that he's saying anything that bad. He's not even saying stuff that I wouldn't say, it's just like, I'm just annoyed by it. Why is that? And so this whole time he's been gone, he finally came back beginning of February. And I put on his end of year review. I reflected the conversation we had because that was like the last interaction we had. And then he was gone for 3 months, but I gave him kind of a poor review for the year. And so I had a conversation with him about it though. And I go, there's one thing that that's been stuck in my craw for the last 3 months. And it's that you said that I have a bias towards you. And I thought, well, shit, maybe you're right. Maybe I do. And so my promise to you is that I'm going to really try to objectively look at what you're saying. And if I am misunderstanding it in chat, because we're all remote, so a lot of the stuff we do is over Teams, and a lot of things get misunderstood over text and stuff. And so I said, my promise to you is if I get the impression that you're saying something negative, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you, and we can talk about it, and I'm going to go into it not like confrontational, just be like, what do you mean by that kind of thing? And we've been doing that all February, and like everything is way smoother now. And so I am thinking that I did definitely have a bias towards this guy and the things that he was saying. And so that was me taking extreme ownership. I almost fired this guy because of a misunderstanding, and that's on me. So I'm trying to, I told him this year, as far as I'm concerned, it's clean slate where we can start all over. He's still really worried about it. He went off in the team's chat like a couple days ago and was like, is there anything I can say that like won't piss you off or whatever? Like I can't, he kind of came at me harsh, and so we went back and forth. I just picked up the phone, called him. I said, "What's eating at you, man?" And I did like, Paul Benjamin's Luca model on him and just let him get it off his chest, and everything was cool by the end of that conversation. But yeah, as far as like managers not always being good, like full accountability, like I probably wasn't being the best manager at that point.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great example, and sometimes we don't realize that why, like certain people just piss us off. Like, let's be honest about that, and we don't always know why. But
I know why now. I know why now. Like, so one of the things that he brought up when I had the initial counseling session with him, and he also brought it up when we had the discussion when he came back, is that he has ADHD. I didn't even fucking know that. So a lot of his...
So do I. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Paul, do you like me?
No, I don't, Huds. In fact, no, I'm just kidding. No, but this guy's... you seem to have yours in check, right? This guy, he goes off on these crazy tangents. You have to reel him back in constantly. And he was telling me, he's like, that's just something I do. And he doesn't mind being told to reel it back in, And so like, but a lot of people just don't understand that he's not sort of reading the social cues. And so people just sort of take it wrong. And so that's another thing. I'm like, okay, all right. So this guy's got, he's got ADHD, and I could work with that now that I know that, So.
Right. And that's interesting because like when I think in the IT world, like especially at the last company, we had he was an Indian developer, very, very smart. Oh man, I love that guy. And he just would kill it. But the way he would say things, most people couldn't interpret it. And it's almost like I had, like when we talk like Donovan Sharp and womanese, it's almost like I had the Indianese for what he was saying. So I always understood what he was saying, and then I could help pad things down with other people in the business. But it is that extreme ownership of understanding that, okay, maybe they're not actually doing anything wrong. Maybe I need to think about the words that are actually being used and why. So that's a great example. I like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's like Jocko says, right? There's no bad teams. There's only bad leaders. So if he's not executing properly, I might not be articulating things correctly, So I try to make sure that I'm as clear as possible. But at the end of the day, too, you also have to realize when it's time to cut someone loose. Someone who's just not a good member of the team. But this, like I said, this guy's work has never been a problem. He's actually a really fucking talented.
He just creates distractions, right?
Yeah, it's just his communication could be better, and I think that's really what it comes down to. But as his boss, if I'm in a meeting, I can help lead that direction for him a little bit better too,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. And that's what a good leader does, is that when they see a team member struggling with something, instead of coming down on their head about it, they try to resolve that through whatever is the best, most advantageous method to the goal, right? Because once again, I say all the time, don't confront, redirect. And do you want to be right or do you want to win?
Yeah, no, good stuff. And I have to say, Justin, I very, very much appreciate this comment here. New to the podcast, but I think you have something great here. These book reflections go beyond a typical book. Yeah, can't even speak. This is why I need Mike Steele. These book reflections go beyond a typical book review podcast. Keep it up. I'll be back for the next book. Appreciate you. I want to hop to you, Thor, because you have had a ton of experience when it comes to being a leader, not just here on the DragonShip, but with the Dragons membership, and then doing stuff with MLD and in your career as well. And I mean, you have many children. So I want to hear from you. And you are muted, by the way. I'll unmute you, I think. No, I can't. I
How
can't
about
unmute
now?
you. Yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah, I will. I'll use one example today of the extreme ownership and how I changed things. It wasn't necessarily based on the book, but it was based on people that read the book. Years ago, when I was working for the corporation I was working for, I was selected as a supervisor of a 13-man outfit. And I went in there, and before I left, my mentor told my son, he said, just remember this, you cannot be a prophet in your own land. That's all he said. And he said, that's an old saying, but keep that in mind. I had no idea what he was talking about. But I went down there, and I liked the guys that was working for me, and I buddied up to all of them. I was super Mr. Nice Guy. And I gave them all the rope they needed, and sure as shit, they hung the hell out of me. A lot of errors. I was called in front of a lot of investigations. And what I had done is, since these guys were effing up and it was under my watch, I blamed them. Hey, these guys have been around for many years. They know better. Look at their track record. Why did they do this? I think I should do something about it. And my mentor agreed, and the leadership that I had at the time, they would accept me blaming them. As a lot of those leaders would do the same. They'd drive that responsibility down. You guys were watching that in real time right now. I write a little bit about it in A Dominant Masculine Presence. Think of President Trump right now. He had a first term. He came in, he was a nice guy with Congress, he was a nice guy with the cabinets. He didn't use too many harsh executive orders. Where did it buy him? What did it get him?
Yeah, he brought in people from the other side too. People tend to forget that. He instead of firing everybody, he actually brought in people from the other side of the fence, people in the middle too.
It wasn't too good. So, I mean, when I left that job, the same mentor looked at me and said, now that you know, a new sheriff in town always does better. You can dial it back. That's all he said to me. A new sheriff in town can dial it back. Then I got my other job, and I actually had more people. And of course, we had a lot of conversations in there, but I was much more of a hard ass and took responsibility. You're watching that with Trump right now. And as people earn their stripes and prove themselves, you can accept their failures and their successes. And when they have successes, you need to broadcast them publicly too. But when you come in as the new sheriff, even though they don't like it, you can always dial it back. And in that is an opportunity to recognize leaders and make them leaders inside your organization. So you go from a weak leader that's blaming everybody else or circumstances out of their control as a wannabe prophet or a wannabe nice guy. You're basically being the nice guy, but for your work and for your team. This does not work in the long run. You can't amp it up after you've been the nice guy, and they're very much friends with yours.
That's what Paul. Sorry. I don't mean to. No,
so
sorry.
If you lay down the expectations right away as the sheriff, they won't like it, but you can always dial that back into a comfortable spot. You can't do the other with a nice guy. And that's kind of what I learned. A lot of the book is about as well. And I'm using some real-time examples myself. And you can see Trump right now is the new sheriff in town. Things are going much different. So there you go. I heard somebody wanted to jump in.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I wanted to jump in on it because, I mean, that's essentially what Paul talks about with Get Her to Fuck You Again with his book. Mm-hmm. It's like it's really hard to then like be the nice guy and then be the alpha. It's really hard to switch that dynamic, but that's what you help guys with, right? Like when you're leading a relationship, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, right? It's because you've essentially given up your leadership position once you get to a place where you're in the dead bedroom. She's running the show. And so any type of leadership that you start trying to like order her around, it comes across like a child trying to bark orders at you. Like she's just going to laugh. She's not going to take you seriously. So it ends up being a little bit at a time. You have to start leading in little areas at a time to start building up that trust where she can trust your leadership abilities again. Because right now she doesn't trust you. So, and that's really the hard part, right? And a lot of guys, they don't realize this, but you didn't get to a dead bedroom overnight. Typically, it's usually years of a guy supplicating and becoming the beta in the relationship and the happy wife, happy life, and all that kind of crap that gets to a place where she's just lost all respect for you, and it's like a guy who's let himself get obese, right? You didn't get obese overnight. You're not going to lose that weight overnight. You're not going to turn the dynamic of your relationship around overnight. It's going to take some work and effort, but it can be done, so, but yeah, it's a little bit at a time, setting the tone and taking the lead in small areas and then working your way up, not like handling her shit tests again, learning how to deal with her emotional storms, stop taking her so seriously, all that kind of stuff, not letting her take you for granted anymore. It's a little by little to where she starts looking at you like, wait a second, something's changing here. I like it. I don't know.
But it all starts at the beginning. And that's kind of what Thor was saying. It all starts at the beginning. It's how you present yourself.
That's the best way to do it, right? Like if you get into a new relationship and you set the tone and take the lead from the beginning and set up that dynamic for success, then all you have to do is maintain it. It's a lot easier to maintain it than it is to let it go, get completely complacent, and then have to try to correct things. It's infinitely easier to start from scratch. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys, I was going to say, a lot of guys don't work on that though. What they'll do is they'll just go, yeah, it's going to be easier with the next woman. And they never work on themselves. And then they find themselves in the same relationship with a different woman, right? She's same relationship, different face. It's because you never worked on this stuff. You never got the skills that you needed. And a lot of it is leadership,
Yeah, and that also comes into that. Sorry, that also comes into ego. I mean, that's one of the points that's kind of pointed out. A lot of times, bad leaders. I mean, we've kind of talked about, but just to say it again, there's no bad teams. There's just bad leaders. Bad leaders, if they have an ego that they can't check themselves, can completely throw off everything. And it's kind of the same type of concept.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier that. Where I work, we have bosses and we have supervisors. There are guys that get into these leadership positions that they want to be a boss. They want to tell you what to do. They don't want to lead you. They don't want to be part of the team being a supervisor. They just want to be a boss. Those guys are not respected at all. Those guys have a lot of problems. And like Thor was saying about actually coming in, being a little harder. When I was hired by the superintendent of the shop that was known as being the most hard-ass superintendent we ever had. But he was also the most respected. He brought a lot of jobs to the facility, and you knew exactly what you got with him. If he told you something, that's the way it was. He wasn't going to waver. But one of the things too was he had talked about not lying to him. If you lied to him, it was over. But if you told him the truth, he could work with you. And we saw that over and over. Guys would get into a little bit of a bind, something would happen, and then they'd go and try to lie to him. And that's it. They're getting the full hammer put down on them. But other guys, we would come in and take ownership and say, hey, boss, I really messed up. This is what I did. And it would be, okay, well, I'm going to give you alternative handling. You need to go to each shift. You need to tell them what you did wrong and how that it's going to, you're going to improve in the future and help other people realize not to make that same mistake. And then it was wiped away. He was completely respected, but a complete hard ass. Now, one of the things of great leadership I see also is we had one supervisor, not a boss, an actual supervisor who was his nickname was Coach, because every day, and I'll give you a little background to it. We have locomotives that come in, and it was more of a service station facility. You would fuel the locomotives, check different things. And the more that we could get through that day, the better off it was. So every day was a game plan. and he'd give a little speech that was just like a football coach giving the plays of what we're going to do. And throughout the day, he was the coach. He was there supporting. You needed help here, he would get it for you there. He played an integral part in that leadership, and it was a well-defined that part of the team. He was not a boss, but he was actually the one that was guiding everybody in their positions, and he was one of the most successful leaders we had there. But again, it all falls down to following these rules of leadership, and each one took ownership, and they expected us to take ownership the same way we talked about. I think Huds, you talked about, or one of you talked about lying. Was it Tarl? Was that you?
Yeah, the lady that contracted
yeah.
us. Yeah, she said, just don't lie to me. That's all. That was her number one request. She was like, just don't lie to me, and we can work.
Yeah, and I've also seen guys that get brought up from the craft that become supervisors, and sometimes it's very hard for them. Just like Thor said, that they can't make that transition into leadership because they're buddies with everyone. So they'll end up taking a position somewhere else. And I've even told them, hey, you're going to have a hard time because everybody knows you. You know, maybe go to a different shop where they don't know you and know what to expect, and you can really set what you mean. A couple of them have taken that advice and have really propelled themselves in the company.
That's actually a very challenging thing for guys in the military. You know, I saw this when there was a first class that I used to work for. He was, you know, more senior than me. This guy, Cartwright. We used to call him Old Balls, right? And we used to call him Old Balls. And Old Balls made chief one year. And one of the things that the Navy will do is once you become a chief, right, which is E7 or above, right? E7, E8, E9. There's chief, senior chief, master chief. You basically
wait, hold on. Are you talking about Halo, Master Chief?
Yeah. U.S. Navy. Yeah. So what they'll do is the chiefs, at least on the smaller ships, even the first classes on bigger ships have their own group, right? Like the first classes hang out together. And but on my ship, we were small enough where the first classes all intermingled with us. So we were all buddy. But once you became chief, you went to the chief's mess and you no longer associated with the blue shirts, right? And so I just remember one day he came into combat after he made chief, you know, and I was like, hey, Chief Old Balls, right? And he's like, he pulled me to the side and you know, to correct me on that, you know, but he didn't do it mean. He's like, look, man, I personally don't mind that you call me that. He's like, I can't have you doing that in front of everybody though, you know, because I'm a chief now. And I was like, I get it, man. Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard when like, yeah, you've built up these friendships, you've gone out in town, you've went drinking together and all this stuff, and now we can't hang out anymore. Now we can't be friends. You know, it's
almost like what you're talking about is kind of like how, and I think the Trump example is absolutely fantastic. I would love to discuss Art of the Deal at some point, but it's kind of how he handles Putin, where you need to be stricter and more direct with him in private, but in public, it's like praise in public, criticize in private.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It goes back to the saying that I've been repeating, don't confront, redirect. People are like, oh, this is something I tell myself, just like asking myself, do I want to be right or do I want to win? Because I'm focused on the goal. What is the outcome I'm trying to achieve?
Hold on, Tarl. Say that again. Do I want to be right or do I want to win?
That's the question. I've started asking other people that. Big Mo's asked that to, you know, Myron before in certain situations. He's told me. So, you know, and it's a good mindset because everybody immediately goes, oh, I want to be right and I want to win. I want both. Just like, yeah, but the thing is, nobody is perfect. And if you don't know where you're fucking up somewhere and you don't know. So if you assume you're always right, you're losing somewhere and you're ignorant of where you're losing.
It's a good point. I just, That's crazy, and that's one thing that's been bogging me down a lot, is because I get frustrated when I know I'm right, but sometimes you just have to play the game.
Yeah, exactly. Because once again, it's just like, yeah, you can be as right as you want to be, but it doesn't change the outcome, does it? Right? It's just like crying. Yeah, crying feels good in the moment, right? We all learned that as a kid. But if you keep doing that as an adult, does that get you respect? No, because you're just a blubbering baby then. You're not an adult. You're not acting proactive to address problems. You're just complaining about them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to dive into some other segments here, but before that, I do want to go ahead and plug your book, Paul. Sorry if I'm sucking your dick a little bit here, but it's good advice. How to get her to fuck you again and be a better leader.
Are you tired of the dead bedroom? Wondering what happened to the passion, the connection, and the spark? Well, here's your answer. Introducing Get Her to Fuck You Again, a red pill guide to fix a dead bedroom, now on Amazon. This isn't about manipulation or tricks. It's about real strategies that work. If your wife has stopped being intimate with you, it's not because the love is gone. It's because the attraction is gone. And that's fixable. This book will teach you the skills to lead your marriage, rebuild your confidence, and become the man she can't stop thinking about. 3 reasons to get this book. 1. It breaks the cycle. You'll learn how to stop doing the same things that are killing her attraction and start doing the things that reignite it. 2. It's practical and proven. With clear, actionable steps, you'll build yourself into the man you were always meant to be. 3. It works for men like you. Paul Bauer has helped hundreds of men just like you fix their dead bedrooms. And now, it's your turn. Don't let another day go by feeling frustrated and disconnected. Go to Amazon right now and buy Get Her to Fuck You Again. Read it, apply it, and watch your marriage transform. The connection isn't gone forever. You just need the roadmap to get it back. And this book is it.
I have to say, like, when it comes to that, and when it comes to leadership, a big part of leadership too is leading by example. And I often do not see that occurring. When you say something, you do it. Like I'm going to go back to Rule 0 because I watched it today, Paul. And okay, if there's dishes and crap and whatever all around, you're just waiting for her to do it. Why don't you just do it to show that you're an adult and you can take care of it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about that on Rule 0. Waiting for a honey-do list is not exactly being the leader, right? That's her leading. But if you recognize that shit needs to be done around the house and you just take care of it, that's you taking ownership of your space. It's a totally different thing. It's, but a lot of guys don't do that, right? A lot of guys, they work 10-hour days, and the last thing they want to do is work when they come home, and so they crack open a couple of beers. And a lot of people, their wives work too, but their wives don't want to live in a pigsty, so they come home and then they also do a lot of work. And of course, they're going to look at you not doing anything and go, "Can you fucking help out a little bit?"
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. And sometimes that spark just needs to come from you because they almost look at you as incapable as a leader.
Well, I think the most common criticism you'll hear women say is, I have another child in the house. Like they look at their husband like another child in the house.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because you're not the one that's taking ownership of the living space, right? Like you need to be the one that's, and a lot of guys misinterpret this too, right? They're like, oh, are they talking about chore play? We're not talking about chore play. And that's where your wife says, hey, if you do the dishes, maybe I'll fuck you a little bit more. Because that's not true. That won't work either, but it's more about,
it's a trap.
Right. It's not about doing the dishes to get her to fuck you more. It's more about you see that trash needs to be taken out, so you fucking take the trash out, right? It's not, you're not doing it for her. You're doing it because it needs to be done,
Right.
It's one of the things I tell a lot of guys, like, don't wait for a honey-do list, make your own fucking list, like take some initiative around your house. I know there's something that needs to be done. You probably, there's a project that you've probably been putting off for the last 3 months. Like, make an effort there. If she sees that you're working on stuff around the house too, she's just doesn't want to feel like she's the only one doing any kind of work in the house. It's not like she's, painting the shed too. She's not doing that, but she feels like she's doing everything because she sees you not doing anything,
Right. And it's very interesting because I've been dealing with this in my own relationship. So my girlfriend just got 6 months ago, got a director job. And within doing that, it's been hell for her. And it's been hell for a long time. And I told her, like, it's got to be, just stay at least 6 months and then we'll figure things out. We'll figure things out in the meantime. Like, we'll get a plan set, but you just need to tough it out. But during this experience with her being in such a leadership role, she's dropped the ball across the board on many, many different household tasks and things that she would always do just happily and willingly. And so what I noticed is that with that, I can understand that she's suffering, and I'm trying to give this support while we make that transition. But then once I started to do some of the things, when instead of waiting until, days, or minutes, hours, days later that she's not taking care of something, well, I go ahead and do it myself to also just alleviate that stress that she's having. And then as soon as I started to do that, then everything kind of flipped and things are going back to normal. So for example, she always works with kids. She worked with medically fragile kids for almost her entire life. She moved into the autism space. And before moving to the autism space, working with these young medically fragile kids, she used to always wear bows every single day. And it's one of my favorite aspects about her because it's just, it's just being the child. And it's just cute. It's fun. I love it. And then she stopped doing that with this job. And she stopped doing a lot of the things that she did essentially with what the role was that she had, being a caring mother or caring helper to people. And when I noticed that, because it kind of like switched to like a corporate style type of thing, and I don't want to date a me, but that's what was starting to happen. And she was unhappy, I was unhappy, and things were not getting done. Just starting and initiating right from the moment that you identify that, helping her out, like, look, I hate to say this, but it's like a look, I don't need you, but I like you around type of movement when you go ahead and take care of the things that she may be dropping. And it's like, look, I don't need you to cook. I don't need you to clean. I don't need you to do any of this type of stuff, but I can take care of it. As soon as I did that, I don't know what the mindset shift was, but as soon as I did that, then she started doing it again. Then she started wearing bows again. Then she started to get happier again. Just knowing that I wasn't just another chore in her long 80-hour work week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we talk about leading by example. Well, what is example? Actions, not just words. Like, this is the mistake that most men make in relationships, is they think that the talkie is going to get them in the pussy. It's going to get them the long-term relationship. But no. It's not the talkie. It's what you fucking do. It's how you actually act. That's what matters. It's whether or not you take accountability. You want your woman to take accountability? Take fucking accountability yourself for everything, including her. But that's where a lot of guys fuck it up, including myself. I used to be like this. I used to try to do the 50-50 thing. Like I said, that's why these motherfucking progressive people and lefties or whatever can't gaslight me, because I used to be a progressive lefty. You can't fucking fool me. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, right? Or shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? I'm not getting fooled again. And the examples that Huds just gave, same thing with my woman. I do chores around the house if I want to. but I do chores around the house, right? And I'm not doing it to get pussy, right? The pussy stuff happens when I just tell her, yo, I want to do something, and she fucking does it because she's enthusiastic. She's turned on by me desiring her. And it's not just me telling her, it's me like going up and whispering in her ear, grabbing her ass a little bit, doing things that couples do in loving relationships, demonstrating affection, right? Through action, not just word. So once again, the proof is in the pudding too.
That's a good point, and that's kind of when we're talking about. Let's shift for a second, just kind of to touch on what you talked about earlier today, Paul, is leading the relationship, how to be an effective leader in the relationship. It's those types of small things, grabbing her ass, slapping her ass or something while she's doing something, giving her a good look. I mean, the eyes are the window to the soul. I 100% believe that.
Some of it too is setting boundaries, telling her what to do, telling her, being able to tell her no. The other day, good example of this. So I had to put my dog down middle of January, and I don't want to get another dog because I also want to travel, and having a dog, it's kind of like having another child. You have to find housing for it. And I usually would bring my dog over to my parents' house when I had to go travel, and not having a dog now, it's a lot easier for me. I don't have to deal with that. But Nurse Chick has a dog, and she brings a dog over here, and he's a good dog, and I don't mind him being over here. But then the other day, Nurse Chick sends me a picture of this puppy, this adorable little puppy, and she goes, "Okay, hear me out. You can get this dog. He could be your new adventure pal. He can go hiking with you, all this kind of stuff." And she's basically trying to sell me on this puppy. And I just replied back to her, "No, he's a cute puppy though." Like I don't want another dog, and I'm not going to compromise on that. So it's just a simple no, very direct no. That's not happening. So, but a lot of guys can't do that. They can't tell their wives or girlfriends no. It's like, "Oh, whatever you want, honey. Whatever, go walk on eggshells. You got to make happy wife, happy life. Let's just make you do whatever you want to do." And it's like, that's no way to live. And the women respect you more when you are able to like be your own guy and be able to say, "No, we're not doing that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime my girl even starts to push that boundary a little bit now, I'll just be like, "Hey, babe, got to respect the no." And I just use the Muse Mastery and just like, "You got to respect the no." And she's like, "Yep, you're right."
There you go. I want to dive into one of the other concepts that's brought out here, and essentially it's decentralized command. Okay, and so when you think about this, leaders must stay. Or hold on, I'm reading the wrong thing. Leaders should empower subordinates to make decisions. Leaders must empower subordinates to make decisions, making them mini managers. And with that, these teams that you create must operate with autonomy while staying aligned with the overall mission. Now, when we're talking about like relationship, even just here, you should empower her to be able to do things and be confident in them. So, for example, with me, I don't know if you guys know this, but I love Legos. And then outside of loving Legos, I'm a chef. I love cooking. And so what I've done is I've trained, and I know that people hate that terminology, but it's realistic. I've trained my girlfriend on how to cook some of the meals that I love. Like, she's a vegetarian, so she doesn't even eat meat. And so I've trained her on how to cook a bunch of different things. And so like whenever I want something, it's able to be done. And she feels good with that. But she feels good with that because I'm giving the support along the way to let her know, like, hey, you are good enough as a chef. You know what I mean? And so when you think about, I'm trying to think, Paul, maybe this ties to you a little bit more. When it comes to IT, and I'm on an applications team. So when it comes to all that, there's a lot of applications working with a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different connection points. So you can have your finance stuff, you can have your marketing stuff, You can have your on alongside some of that, you get your sales stuff. So you get all these different things that are trying to connect together. And when you divide your team and empower your team and encourage your team to be able to own those subsections, then all you really have to do is just be the decision maker at the top. Right?
Well, there's more to it than that too, though, because if you think about it, if you are in a position where you have a boss that's like, I want you to take this, make it yours, whatever the best judgment is to get the mission. This is the overall mission, right? Like as the director, I'm like, this is our overall mission. However you want us to get there, like, let's get there, right? If and trust your team to be able to do their jobs and not micromanage them. Because if they have that ownership of their own jobs and they can actually make decisions themselves and they don't have to constantly come to you because you're always micromanaging them, they feel more empowered and they get more job satisfaction, when they get to make their own decisions. But if they don't get to make their own decisions and they just have to be doing what they're told, like, there's no job satisfaction there, and they'll be less motivated to do the work. That's one of the problems with the company that I work for now, because before we got acquired, we were a startup company. I was the senior director of IT infrastructure. So I was in charge of like pretty much everything, like our servers, the network, the firewalls, the phone system, the email, everything. And if I wanted something done, I would just do it however I wanted to do it. Like we needed a new monitoring system, so I would, I could set it up myself, or I could delegate it to one of my systems engineers and say, hey, we need some kind of monitoring. Is there any kind of like open source we can use? And so my guys would go and research it and be like, oh, let's try this tool, And so if they had a good idea that they knew how to manage, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do your thing, so that they would take ownership of it. And that was like their baby. Right. But we got acquired by a much bigger company now. And so the infrastructure, I have no say in it. The CI/CD pipeline that we use, I have no say in it. It's like we have to use the tools that they tell us to use. And so being in that position where I don't get a say in it, like it's funny because my boss is like, I really want you to take ownership of this. And I'm like, well,
I can't.
I'm like, I don't own it. I don't get a say in what tools we use. I go, so the best I can do is, make sure that we're using the tools that they told us to use the way they want us to use them. That's the best I can do. That's as much ownership as I can possibly have for this, and just make sure that we're getting things done on time and whatever. But that's it. Like, I can't own this pipeline, boss, because I don't get a say in what we do with it. Right. I wouldn't even use this pipeline if it was up to me. It's a shitty pipeline. Right.
And that's what, let me just hop in here. That's what's kind of what I was talking about, is like, okay, I would love for my girl to cook for me every night. How do I get there? Well, I empower her and encourage her through teaching her and working with her to the point that I don't have to cook anymore. I mean, I still do very often, because as I said, I consider myself a chef. I love doing it. But it's empowering her and bringing her up so that I know that can work with autonomy, and she has the information necessary to be able to do the job. And then if I want to do something different, well, that's when I step in. Otherwise, it's good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, I talk about it in Psychology Paradigm and in Get Her to Fuck You Again. But the having the mental model of like, you're not partners. It's the captain executive officer dynamic, where she's an executive officer, which is a leadership position, but she's there to help you support the mission. She's not your equal partner. So if it's up to you to sort of lead that mission, be more decisive, make the plans and stuff, but there's no reason why you can't take her recommendations under advisement, and if she's got a better idea than yours, there's no reason not to run with it. And that will actually make her feel, empowered too. If you're not like, hey, it's my way or the highway, woman,
Yeah.
Because she gets a say, and I love using the dinner analogy with that, because women can never pick a place to eat. They never know what they want to eat.
I can't stand this, because I've been having this argument over the past couple of days, because we finally got her a new job, and she's going to be leaving this dumpster fire that she's at currently, and she like wants. She's like, I want you to take me out to dinner. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. Like, where do you want to go and when? I don't know.
Yeah. Then don't just say, okay.
No, they're never going to know.
Yeah.
My wife from the very beginning, when we got together, has always been that way. We'll, where do you want to go? Oh, I don't know. Pick someplace. Okay, I'll pick someplace. And then I'll say, well, what do you want? She'll say, I don't know. And you know how I handle that?
Just order her something.
I just order for her.
Yeah.
She loves it every time. Done this for 31 years now. And what's funny is that I kind of was that way with the whole family. Got that way with the whole family. So one of my boys was 12 or 13, and he went over with friends. They went to a fast food restaurant, and they asked him what he wanted, and he got dumbfounded. He said, well, I've never been able to order before. So I guess I took it a little too extreme with my boys, but yeah, that's a lot of women, they really don't want, especially a woman who's in a leadership role that's having to make decisions. Very hard for her anyway. So it's very much a release when she can just let that go and let her leader take over and make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. For Nurse Chick, it was her. Huds is here. I'll put myself on there. Huds. The host went away.
Sorry, I had to run to the bathroom.
It's all right. It was Nurse Chick's birthday yesterday, and her birthday was coming up, and I asked her, is there anything special you want for your birthday? And she sent me a link to some stand-up comic show that's going to be like next Thursday. And I'm like, well, that's not on your birthday. It's two. It's a night where you go back and you get your kids back. So now you're going to have to, leave your kids at home so that we can go out. It's just not a very good night. And I said, you know what? I'll pick something for us to do for your birthday. And so I go online. I live out in the middle of fucking nowhere, as you guys know. And so there's not a whole lot to do around here. So the fact that comic was even coming to town is kind of cool, but it just was not on her birthday. So I went and took it upon myself to look to see what was available in town on Friday night on her birthday. And the only thing I could find was a fucking circus was coming to town. And I go, yep, that's what we're doing.
Oh yeah.
So I got front row tickets to the fucking circus that came to town last night. I didn't tell her what we were doing, so it was a mystery date. And I was like, it's either going to be a good show and it's going to be fun, or it's going to be a shitty show and I have to make it fun. But either way, she's going to have fun. And so I took her to the fucking circus last night. And then I hammed up everything. And then we were like sort of, making fun of some of the performers, and like some of the acts were actually really good. There was a lot of like overweight, tortas that were, dancing in skimpy outfits. And so I was making fun of the tortas, and she had a really good time. And then afterwards I was like, let's go to Moody's, which is a speakeasy type place in Grand Junction. And so I didn't ask her what she wanted to do on her birthday. Basically, I was like, we're doing this on your birthday, and it's going to be fun.
I love that.
Part of the masculine burden of performance is that you have to be, and that's one of the beautiful things about women
You have
that
to
guys
provide-
take for granted. They
provide the
don't
experience.
want things in particular most of the time. And so they will go along with what you want. As long as you don't get the same boring thing over and over again, it's different, or occasionally at least you mix it up.
Yeah.
They'll go along with whatever you fucking want and they'll love it, especially if you're fun to be around. It's it sounds simple, but a lot of guys take that for granted.
Well, it's funny because my housekeeper was over yesterday, and so she goes, oh, it's her birthday. Oh, are you taking her to the winery, which is like a pretty swanky place in Grand Junction? I go, no, I'm not taking her to the winery. right? And she's like, oh,
I'm taking her to the circus.
I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her what I was doing, but because I know she would have like poo-pooed it or whatever. But it's like, look, how many fucking times have you been to a restaurant and it's forgettable? Because it's like you go to restaurants all the time. When was the last time someone took you to the fucking circus? Right. And so I was like, she, good or bad, she's gonna remember this forever. She's gonna be like, oh yeah, one time Paul took me to the fucking circus for my birthday. That's a memorable birthday.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because like now I'm thinking about it because we went to the circus not too long ago, and that was every moment of that is almost ingrained in my brain, and it's something different. And you know what? I want to talk about this because we're veering away from the topic, but still, one of the things that completely screwed up my head was the fact that the girl that ended up getting me arrested, she told me specifically, I don't like surprises. And every time I would surprise her, she would freak out. And this was, yes, BPD. It was a BPD chick that she needed consistency, but didn't understand what consistency she really wanted. And imagine how much of a mind fuck that is to be like trained, because I was with her for 5 years. So imagine how much a mind fuck that is for you to spend 5 years with somebody who's telling you the opposite and reacting the opposite of what a normal woman would. Insane.
That's why you never listen to what women say and just watch what they respond to.
Just how they work. Actions over words.
Yeah.
Well,
it's an equation of both. Like guys, it's like Fresh and Fit always talks about. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Well, that's largely true, but it's also both that matter, right? Because you can tailor your speech to communicate with people better, because different people interpret words and language differently. People tend to forget this. This is the Tower of Babel from the Bible. We're speaking the same language and using the same words, but not speaking the same things, because we're using the language differently as individuals. People tend to forget the individuality. It's not just about how, what the words are in the dictionary and how people use them. It's both.
Yeah,
it's the truth. And one thing here, and I want to hear from you guys. And Vidar, I actually want to start with you on this, but with one of the points, which is discipline equals freedom. So consistency, structure, and discipline create freedom by reducing chaos. So these small daily disciplines lead to long-term success. And that's one thing, and I think that's why in the IT field, we have daily scrums, because it's just that daily discipline. And it's interesting because one of the things that my boss told me when I took this job, I actually was turning down a job that would have paid me $15,000 more, which nice. But the reason I chose it is because of his methodology. And essentially what he had said to me is that the number one requirement is just show up in the morning. And that just like made an imprint on me. So I thought that's really interesting. Like that's what he literally did. Just creating that small daily discipline leads to long-term success. So Vidar, I want your opinion on this when it comes to those daily disciplines. And you are muted right now, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that daily disciplines absolutely success. If you listen to a lot of very successful people, they will tell you one of the things they did was they get up early in the morning. And that is a little daily discipline. Who likes to get up early in the morning? I mean, what do we do on our weekends a lot of times? Sleep in. At least I did when I was younger. Now I'm more like my dad and up at 4 o'clock in the morning. If I sleep in, it's 5. But there's that's one little thing of discipline. There's rules. There's rules to life. If you follow those rules and stay within those rules, you will have great freedom and great success.
Yeah, I notice a difference when when I get up earlier than necessary and just like to do it. And then my day feels more full. You guys understand the concept I'm talking about? Like you can sleep in, like let's say you're awake for X amount of hours. Let's say you're awake for, I don't know, 16 hours. Let's just say, and you're sleeping your 8 hours at night. When you're up for 16 hours, that 16 hours feels different if you started it early, rather than starting it late.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because I've always been a night owl. I'd much rather stay up late and then sleep in and stuff like that. And what I found when I was starting to work with my coach back in October was that there wasn't enough hours in the day to get all the shit done for all the stuff I was working on. And so he challenged us one morning, or one of our weekly sessions, which was try to get 10 things done before 10 a.m. Get 10 things done before 10 a.m. I'm like, fuck, I don't even get up until 9. How am I going to get 10 things done before 10 if I don't even get up and start like rolling around and, shit, shower and shave and drink coffee? By the time I do that, it's already 10. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to get up early. So I started getting up at like 5 in the morning and knocking out some of these things. And what I found was, even though I go to bed earlier now, in the morning, it's almost like I in the morning, I just naturally want to start getting shit done. So I start knocking stuff out in the morning. And then in the evening, I always found that in the evening, I don't want to work anymore. So I much rather sit around, watch TV and, fuck around on my phone and stuff. And so I'm more productive getting up earlier because I knock out all that work in the morning, and now like my evenings are free. And then I go to bed, and it's only like a couple hours difference, And so, I get way more done now that I get up earlier.
Yeah. I almost feel like, sorry, Carl. So sorry, Carl. I almost feel like the workday really is just the morning. You know what I mean? It's almost like if you get everything done, it's just smooth coasting in the afternoon and afterwards.
Yeah, I could do more work in the evening, but I don't want to, because that's family time for me. Like I'd much rather hang out with my girlfriend, I'd much rather hang out with my son. I don't really want to work in the evening, but in the morning, like let me knock all this shit out, and then I can actually enjoy my evenings. And so I made it a habit since October to start getting up at like 5 in the morning and stuff.
Yeah, this is backed by science, right? It's two simple things: circadian rhythm and your daily energy output. You only have you have a calorie cycle every day, right? So as the day goes on, you run out of energy, right? It dips down, so you get the energy cycle. So you're always going to be more energized earlier during the day. And if you have the proper circadian rhythm where you're getting up early and going to bed at a normal time, typically before midnight, and then sleeping for a good 6 to 8 hours at least, you're going to have a much better reset cycle, and you're going to get a lot more shit done. It's just more efficient. You can function in late hours. I do that all the time. I move freely back and forth as needed. But yes, you're always at a more optimal ratio of energy output and production if you get up earlier in the morning.
Yeah, it really is. It's so weird. It's so weird how it works, and I still fight against it. I think everybody fights against it. I don't want to wake up early.
Nobody wants to get up early, but that's the discipline we're talking about. That once you do it, you were talking about having freedom. It's the same thing with working out. When you get into the gym and you're working out and you push yourself, it's hard the first few times. It actually is always hard, but look how you feel afterwards. The reward of that discipline and that self-discipline definitely exceeds the work to get there.
Yeah. Even doubling back to what Thor was talking about at his one job where he tried to be friends with everybody, right? It's just like, you can't be friends with everybody. This is one of the other lessons that I learned in multiple jobs that I've had, is that I've always been that nice guy and tried to be friends with everybody. But now I just, kind of sit back when I'm getting hate. I understand most people are going to like me and a few people are going to hate me. And instead of trying to befriend the people that hate me, I just give more attention to the people that actually like me and push me ahead. Now, there are people that criticize me, and there's people that give me constructive criticism, and there's people that give me destructive criticism, right? And it's very easy when people are just ad hominem you and not even giving you an alternative, they can just be ignored. And that's me leading myself, not letting somebody, putting out toxicity towards me and not giving me any, just like, oh, just shut up. Just like, well, I'm on the panel and you're not. And I was invited here and you're not. So, it's okay. You can attack me all you want. I'm rent free in your head. That's cool. Like, you're not going to stop me from telling people the truth. If I was saying something wrong because I'm yelling, you sound like a Fresh and Fit After Hours girl. Like, oh, it's because of how you said it. It made me feel some type of way. My poor little ears couldn't handle it. Okay, that's your problem. That's not my problem. Have a good day.
That's funny. That's funny that person said that when you were talking. And Vengeful Truther, I can't even speak today. Vengeful Truther, very much appreciate you, brother. Very much appreciate you. And yes, if you guys want us to respond to anything, or if you just want to support the show, very much appreciate any type of super chat or cash app. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. This is oh crap, I just forgot.
Hey, I just want to say one more thing real quick. When we're talking about discipline, we're talking about getting up early. I know for myself, when I don't get up early, or even getting up early, let's say I don't get the work done, and I'm given a task list to do, and I decide I'm just gonna be lazy, not get it done, and I know I have so many hours to get that done in. So I let things go, and then now here's an hour or two before the end of my shift that now I've got to hurry and get these things done.
Yes.
And in the back of my mind, I'm not stressing yet, but as the day goes on, I'm starting to stress more and to stress more and to stress more. And to the end of the day, I'm not doing the quality of work that I may have. And even if I was, here's this added stress in my life where if I get the job done early in the morning, I get that task list, I get it knocked out. Now I have the same amount of time, or maybe a little less because I've done a better job. I feel better about the job I've done. And now I have that same time or a little bit of less without all that stress to do the things I was doing that morning, or getting caught up on Instagram or whatever it was I was doing, get caught up on the Telegram. Maybe listen to one of your guys' podcasts. Then it's a little easier, and I'm a little more relaxed, where the discipline of doing it that way is so much better, and there is so much more freedom in it.
Dude, it's crazy. I'm like thinking about back to like a recent work trip that I had, and I find that on work trips, if I wake up much earlier, so like even if I give myself like a 2-hour buffer time before I have to hit the office location, everything just runs smoother. And on my most recent work trip, I ended up oversleeping a little bit, and so I only had like 45 minutes, maybe 35 minutes, now that I think about it, to get to the office. And the office was only like 10 minutes away, so it wasn't a big deal. But I felt erratic, and like I do have bad allergies, so like my eyes are red, and I'm just like, God damn it. Like this is just you're stepping on the wrong foot. But when you do it, when you give yourself that extra space and you just get done the basic things like putting on the clothes, preparing your bag, and you're ready to go, and then it's, oh, well, I don't have to head to the office for another hour. It's just so much more relaxing, and you come in with such a more peaceful energy, not just for yourself, but for everybody else.
Yeah, because it takes mental bandwidth to not forget all the shit you need to do. So the quicker you get it done, I've been teaching my son this. So like, hey, can I get computer time, Dad? And I'll just be like, do your chores first. I won't ask him if he's done his chores. I'll just be like, remind him, do his chores first, and just make it very straight to the point. And so he goes, empties the trashes and all that stuff, gets his chores done. and then he gets to hop on the computer, and then he can have fun. And that's what I'm trying to teach him, is that if you do the work first and have fun later, you will usually enjoy the fun more, and
you
work
will
will be more
enjoy the
satisfying.
fun more. Fuck! I just broke something.
Everyone
But
thinks
that's
that everyone
true.
thinks everyone
Hey,
thinks
Viking
that Charles gonna break something, but it's Huds.
A Viking
That's so
kid.
true.
A Viking kid, you just dropped another truth bomb.
That's so true, though. You enjoy the fun more when you do what you need to do first. And I've been a victim to this over and over and over again. And I'm still trying to break the cycle because it's so easy when you've got all this. I don't even want to show you guys how ridiculous this Lego setup is, but it's so much fun to just do what you think is going to be fun, but you enjoy it so much more when you have to wait for it. And that's another aspect of leadership when it comes to timing things and understanding that things will likely take longer than normal, but absorb it.
Yeah, it's about understanding the process. You create the process, and then you trust the process you created. Same thing with the leadership we were talking about before. When you give instructions to subordinates and allow them creative freedom to execute those instructions, understanding like Paul is. Paul understands the mission at his job. He's not allowed to make unilateral decisions, and he's respecting that. But what he is doing is he's still exercising his creative freedom to effectively get the job done with the tools he's given to do that job. And that's what a good worker and a good leader both coincidentally do.
Yeah. I like to say, I like to turn chicken shit into chicken salad.
I don't know why you're eating chicken poop, but whatever.
Hey, you know.
Sometimes
But I have to say on when it comes to pacing, that's one thing that I've learned, and this has been my journey over the past year, is pacing. And I think that we are brought up in a way that I think it's the school system. I think we're brought up in a way where it's like get it done, get it done, get it done. And like because you have test dates, you have this date, you have that date. What I've learned is that things move a lot slower than you think, and it's okay to embrace. What is the book? It's crap. I've got it written down in my notebook here. It's How Big Things Happen. I believe that's what it's called. And in that book, it's how to, and this is probably going to be another show that we do, is How Big Things Happen. But it essentially is think slow, act fast. Normally people think fast and then they end up acting slow because of the way that they were initially thinking. But instead, and that's what I do, like I'm a business analyst. So it's about thinking about everything first, making sure you have all grounds covered. Once everything is ready to go, execute. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
And I think encouraging an environment, and that's what my boss does, and that's why I appreciate him so much. That's what my boss does. He fosters an environment where we can think at a proper pace to then execute quickly. Good stuff.
Oh, we need
You
to.
want to throw some titty bouncing or something?
No, that's only a $4.99 super chat, so it gets the horn. Hold on, let me get that though. Here we go. And
You want to go ahead and read it out for us?
yeah, true words. Finish work first and enjoyment will be totally carefree. Everything is lighter when the work is done. You know, it's like what was it? That childhood tale of like the ant and the grasshopper or something like that, where like the ants were busy working, getting food ready for the winter time, and the grasshopper was fucking around the whole summer. And then when winter came around, he had no food and he didn't know what he was going to do. You know, It's like, but the ants were carefree because all the work was done. Now they can relax and, you know, they didn't have to worry about anything.
That's
you're not having to
interesting.
spend mental energy remembering those things, so that way it's that the agony of procrastination, right? It's just like the more you procrastinate, the more you procrastinate. Why? Because it's a finger trap mentally. You're just constantly pulling at that instead of relaxing, getting shit done, and you just get it done. And now all of a sudden, oh, your brain no longer has to think about it. And when it does, it's like, oh, that's done. I don't have to do it anymore. It's very simplistic, and it sounds stupidly simple when I say it out loud. However, a lot of people neglect this because they're not
It's not human
mindful of
nature.
their own actions.
It's not human nature. It's not human nature. Yeah, we're impatient individuals, and maybe if you talk about like God or the devil, maybe that's like the devil coming into us. But yeah, it's human nature to steer away from what is right.
Yeah, your original thing you were bringing up was talking about the freedom within rules. And, you know, it sounds like that's a paradox. Well, you have rules, you don't have freedom. But these are the kind of rules that I see, that you definitely have more freedom mentally, you have more freedom, more enjoyment in life. Just like you know, the secrets of life you're dropping there, Tarl. You know how you said you have more fun, and you know, that was a great statement.
I want to talk about this one. I want to talk about this one here. And Tarl, I'm going to come to you first on it, because this is actually something that I am personally dealing with. So when the work is never done, or I'm gonna turn Justin's words here. When the work is done, the work is done. Is it all fun and games? I don't understand what you're saying. But what I want to ask, the question I want to ask off of that is, when you've done everything and then you've got nothing left to do, what the heck do you do? That's the question I want to ask right now, because I found myself. Yeah. So I found myself that I've had too much free time. And with too much free time, I've said publicly on this panel, I'll say it again, I enjoy gambling. And I stopped gambling just because I'm like padding up for us to we're going to be moving at the end of the month. So you guys are going to get a brand new studio, but we're going to be moving at the end of the month, and I'm preparing for the rest of the family. So it's just interesting to kind of like consider this. When everything is done, what do you do? Because if you're sitting around bored, how do you fill that time? Like, if I can do my job, which is supposed to be 8 hours, if I can do that in one, what do I do with the other 7? So, Tarl, I want your thoughts on this.
Well, it comes down to choice and knowing what you want in general. Right? It's like, so I have my own strategies for dealing with free time and stuff like that. For instance, I made a resolution to myself when I was like 14 years old that instead of entertaining myself when I got bored, I would educate myself. Right? And I do that currently. I do that largely through YouTube, or I'll do like independent research, keeping up on, like, say, computer parts and technology that's coming out and stuff like that, because that is part of my business. So I need to know all the cutting edge tech that's coming out, what it's going to be able to do, and that sort of stuff. So for me, it's like I always have stuff to do. I never have a question about what I'm going to be doing. Right? It's always basically, this is what I'm doing next. This is what I'm doing next. And this is what's going to result from that. And I'm always building, you know, starting with the micro and creating the macro piece by piece, just like a Lego set. Right? You're going to love this, Huds. It's just like, that's how I build my daily actions in my life. I start with the simplest parts and build on top.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think that journey of self-discovery, and so maybe this question is going to transform as we go around. How do you even find what it is that gives you purpose outside of just doing? I saw a comment in the chat way back up, maybe half an hour ago, and it was like, men just like doing things. Men just like getting stuff done. Okay, so if we're just the worker ants, how do we find something that gives us fulfillment outside of that? And Paul, I'm going to come to you with that.
Yeah. So it's interesting when you first brought it up. Like, what do I do when the work is done? Like, my initial mind went to like in the evening, because I'm a little bit of a workaholic, and I'm like, there's always something to be doing especially because I'm a small business owner, right? Like, there's always something I could be doing, and so I find myself in the evening when I coming up with these ideas, like, oh, I need to do this, so I'll take action and just do it now. So I'd spend a lot of my time doing that. But if you've ever read the book, The 4 Hour Work Week, man, what a phenomenal book. What he talks about in there is essentially that in your day to day, when you look at your 9 to 5 office job, a vast majority of what you do at work is busy work. It's not stuff you want to do. It's not stuff that's even important. It's stuff that the company gives you to do to sort of justify keeping you there for 8 hours. But like the real work that you do is probably only a couple hours a day. And so the whole first part of the book is teaching you how to negotiate with your boss to become a remote work employee, which is a lot easier now because post-COVID, there's so many more remote jobs than there ever were, right? But that book was written well before COVID. But once you become a remote work employee, you'll find that meeting deadlines is easy if you knock out your shit early in the morning and you set like certain expectations, like, hey, I only check my emails at noon and whatever. It frees you up for doing stuff that you actually care about, things you're passionate about. And that's what I would say when you're looking for something that gives you purpose. It's like, what gives you that sense of passion? Like, what do you love doing? What would you do for free? And for me, for a lot of us, it's podcasting, it's streaming. Like I for years I did this for free. I've had my podcast going on 5 years now. And for years, I did it for free. I wasn't monetized. I didn't have any kind of coaching. I didn't have any kind of like beer club or anything like that. I just did it because I loved doing it. And so it ended up becoming a passion of mine, just sharing the stuff that I've been learning over the last several years on my own path, right? And then that passion has turned into a business. So I would say, if you're trying to find what your purpose is, try to figure out what you're really passionate about. What makes you excited to get up in the morning?
Yeah, no, and I have to say, what's really like confusing to me in my mental is that, again, Tarl, this comes back to the conversation we had behind the scenes in studio about my mother. My mother, and where this all spawned was that she essentially said that because on the one Christmas where they bought me Legos and I wasn't hungry, or not that I wasn't hungry, this is a whole story, but I had a cat just like Vidar, and that cat loved to sit on that seat. So it was my first time ever being able to sit at the head of the table. And so sitting at the head of the table was like, oh yeah, I'm a big man in the house. We had ribs for some reason. That was like an addition to the meal. And so, with all that barbecue sauce, well, you put your hands down on the napkin. It kept collecting cat hair. So I had fingers of barbecue sauce and cat hair trying to eat ribs. It was just awful. I lost my appetite immediately. Not doing this no more. And so what did I want to do? Well, I wanted to go build the AT-AT downstairs. So I asked to do that. Well, my mom had told me that, or she pushed the narrative that I'm depressed. And this is like depression symptoms of me wanting to go do that and wanting to seclude myself from the family. Yo, I'm a fucking 10-year-old kid. What do you want from me? And so that kind of pushed me away from Legos and modeling and art. Like I don't know if I've shown you guys. I have an art set here where it's all drawn by myself, where it's a hand with an egg, cracking the egg, and then in the frying pan is Tweety Bird. I love this thing. It's absolutely beautiful. And even back in high school, I was chosen to have my piece used as the postcard for the art show of the class. And the school bought my art piece and hung it up in the school, which was awesome. So like when I think about like all those types of things, she was just inhibiting who I was. So from there, all of those experiences had me drop away this. It had me drop away the imagination. It had me drop away the fun. It had me drop away just the enjoyment. It's like kind of like a puzzle. It's a puzzle plus architecture plus art. Yeah, it really is cool. It's like a form of expression. And once I started doing it again, and it was only because of Jack Napier, fuck you, Jack, that I ended up going absolutely crazy on this. And I've created so many beautiful, brilliant displays. And I now think differently again. I've gone back to the mind that I used to have, the mind that is me. So no matter what it is, I guess that's kind of the advice or the recommendation I'd give to anybody who's trying to figure it out, whether you are in retirement and don't know what to do anymore, or you are just trying to figure out yourself. Go back to your roots. When you go back to your roots and you really look at yourself, you'd be surprised at what you find.
Yeah, I think the issue for a lot of people is that because they've had that creativity squashed out of them through, you know, public socialization, through the school system and peer pressure and all that stuff, a lot of people just go along because they don't want to stand out. They don't want to be the nail that gets fucking hammered, right?
Mhm.
So they tend to go along and they will give in and squash their own creativity. So when it comes to deciding what they want to do, that nothing even looks fun anymore. Right? They're like, I don't even know what I want to try. There's too many options and I don't even know what I like. That's why one of the first things I tell guys, you know, or ask guys when they come into spaces where I'm at and they're, you know, like, hey, I need help. I'm just like, well, you're asking for all this different advice, but what do you really want? That's the first question we ask guys. Like, what do you really want? Do you even know? Because until you know what you want, we can't even help you because we need a goal to help you achieve. And if you have no goal, regardless of the context, then we can't help you achieve anything because it's not about just talking about things. It's actually about taking step-by-step actions to achieve an end goal. And if you can't decide what that end goal is, it's the same thing with the dinner problem, asking your wife, where do you want to eat? She doesn't care. She wants to eat where you want to eat. That's the truth. And that's the secret that a lot of guys are like,
She wants
well,
to
no,
be
I want
by
to know
your
where
side.
she wants to eat. It's just like you're doing it backwards. You're putting the cart before the horse. You need to decide and be creative about it. And that sucks.
It sounds so stupid, but you need to be the owner of your own destiny. And if you believe in something, if you like something, I mean, hell, I've talked about this on my Men of Now podcast. When we talk about this, I thought it was so interesting because like I see a lot of people in the chat like saying like the red pill RP stuff. I mean, yes, that's where we all came from. Does it mean that this is an RP panel? No. But when I take one of those principles and I went on the first date with my girl, this is over 4 years ago. When I went on the first date and then we went back home and we ended up I don't know, whatever, sex. So when we sexed, then I asked her afterwards, when was the reason when was the moment that you knew you were going to have sex with me? And she said, it was when you started talking about that Korean video game that you've been playing for 7 years. And the passion that you spoke about it. And how much you loved it. I don't understand it. I don't care about it, but it's the passion that you had.
Yeah.
If you are going to take extreme ownership of your life, what you need to do is to take extreme ownership of your life. And when you do that, and when you live exactly how you want to live, everything else falls into place. Now, that does not, I just got to preface it. That does not count for terrorists or murderers or pedophiles or anything like that.
Well, that actually, real quick, I want to interrupt because there was a point that I wanted to make about what Vidar said about rules being freedom. And that sounds like a contradiction. But once again, what are rules for? The rules aren't to take away your freedom. They're to put guardrails up against the extremes on both sides. That's what rules are for. And that's why discipline is freedom, because it creates a railway to success rather than you just going off the rails and wrecking your fucking shit.
Yo, hit a Don DeMarco on that. Jesus Christ, Carl.
Don DeMarco.
That was fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Makes me almost want to smash my desk.
I'll have to clean up the crap afterwards. Whatever.
And also addressing, people, I've seen a couple of comments, red pill panel, I think. Well, remember what the red pill is a metaphor for. The hard truth. The uncomfortable truth. Right? And these are uncomfortable truths about the world. A lot of people want to obfuscate reality, but, if coming from a religious standpoint myself, I'm like, what is God if not the truth?
Yeah,
truth, the way, and the light. That's what I remember. But, it seems like, once again, in today's society, it's like, those red pill guys. Well, what does the red pill stand for? I know what a lot of other people try to make it stand for, but I always keep it grounded and remember we're talking about truth here. What things are actually true, and stop bullshitting and beating around the bush about how to achieve ethical things in life.
Right. We've had too many bad actors that give us a bad light, but it is what it is, and we're trying to, rising tide lifts all ships, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring reason. We're trying to use the understanding of that and then bring reason and help people live better lives. Hello, kitty cat.
Yeah, and Lindsay did ask me before. She said that I seem bitter when I talk about this. So no, I'm not bitter. I'm resolute. I'm impassioned, right? I have had a lot of people hurt me, but I've also had a lot of people help me. And the thing is that when I learned the people to trust, the people through action that showed they cared, that's why I'm surrounded by people that actually help me now. And why I continue to have this passion to help other people. I wasn't planning on doing podcasting or any of this shit. Thor invited me onto the DragonShip to do this. I had other people push me, say, you should give relationship advice because you're doing so good. And I'm going like, no, I'm still learning over here myself. Why should I be giving advice? But here I am on the DragonShip, and I'm giving sound advice and hearing people echo the same truths that I had to learn the hard way myself.
Yeah, well, the best way to teach is, or the best way to learn is to teach.
Would you get that from Nikki?
No,
that's what Nikki told me, and I love that. I love that.
I've heard Ryan say that too. It's just, I think it's pretty common expression, but it's true. The more that I have to study to deliver a good presentation on my shows every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, the more I learn myself, because I have to study this stuff. I have to study it constantly. Right.
You have to stay involved.
Yeah.
I can break it down. Like I really learned that in jiu-jitsu, that wanting to advance myself in jiu-jitsu, the quickest way was to teach other people. Because once you learn a move and you do it over and over, you even learn it better when you have to come up with the words and the communication to be able to explain it to someone else with all the little nuances that come with it. So it's almost like you're looking at it from completely different angles, and that drives it home. Makes your game quicker, a lot better, but that applies to everything. Just like when you're teaching something psychologically, or something like when I'd like to get back to, which you talked about, the target, knowing your goal, knowing your end goal. When you teach things, for example, I like to teach on the automatic goal striving mechanism, that you can achieve some of these goals or hit the target by programming your mind to be able to do so. That when you learn these principles, to teach it to someone else gives it that other angle that you have to then understand it more. And as you're researching it more, you become better versed at it. it's all that same principle, just like with the physical in jiu-jitsu. Now it's mental. So it's a great statement that if you want to become better at something, teach it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it
'cause you-
forces your brain to be able to explain it. Myron's talked about this on the podcast, and Rolo's talked about this as well, about how naturals can't explain how they get women. They just be like, oh, I just go to the club and the women just come to me. It just happens, guys. I don't know what I'm doing. But they don't know that it's a lot of things they had just learned quickly, but they never really had to analyze it. Or they adapted to their mistakes so quickly that they didn't even really think about it. They just tried again a different way and it just worked. And they're just like, okay, this just works. They never had to analyze why. And you see the same problem with people that don't learn from their mistakes because they don't analyze why the mistake is. And when you can't take personal ownership of what your role was in that, then you're never going to really be able to understand the problem. Therefore, you can't even come up with an effective solution.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. We've been going on for a while. So I want to do a roundtable and some final thoughts. And guys, like definitely like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you enjoyed this book club and if you want to do more like this. I think that these types of topics, like granted, we didn't hit every single point, but we don't necessarily need to. It's about the overarching type of thing. And your interaction absolutely helps us to lead the conversation and give the answers that we need. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up here, but final thoughts from everybody and what you got going on and where people can find you. So Vidar, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. One of my final thoughts is an excellent book to read and learn from. We did not hit all the topics. Some of my topics that I wanted to hit on in it that we didn't even get to is like number 2 of the top 10 is believing. As a leader, you need to believe in
Hey,
the
let's
outcome
do
of
it.
the mission.
Let's talk about it. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Let's talk about it. I'm all for it.
Well, as a leader, we have to believe in the mission. And it's just like in sales, if you don't truly believe, you're going to have a hard time selling. Same thing with the mission. Even if the mission is giving to you, you need to come to the point where you can portray that to others, and that'll build people behind you. With believing, there's that. I use the example of placebo. Are you guys all familiar with placebo, what a sugar pill is? And they do a placebo study. When they do a placebo study, they take the sugar pill with the real medicine and they will give it to 2 different people. And what they found was early on was that people are going to be, there's going to be a certain group of people that are going to be healed from the sugar pill. And they're going to see the people that are actually healed from the medicine. What they found was that doctors had a huge influence. Just as a side note, I don't think that the placebo effect has been studied enough because here's a whole range in science that could overwhelmingly help people without harmful side effects. But I digress. What they found was that a doctor has a huge influence on the outcome of the medicine. So what they started doing was a double-blind placebo test. Because if the doctor knew which was which, he would portray it, even not with his words, but his actions to the patient. Well, this is here, take this medicine. And he would know that it wasn't real and it'd have a huge outcome. So what they do is this double-blind study is the doctor doesn't know what each pill is. He doesn't know if it's the real medicine or if it's the sugar pill. So he will approach it with the same type of enthusiasm or even a blank enthusiasm. And then they'll be able to study and see a more accurate of whether the sugar pill, to the medicine, which one was working better. The point I'm making is people can read you whether you truly believe it or not. So believing in that mission, believing in the outcome, believing in knowing the target and that target you're wanting to hit is a great way of energizing those people underneath you and people around you and even your partner in what the goals you want to achieve.
I love that. I love that. That's good. And I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, just to summarize for you guys, kind of the way I outlined it, we had believing in actually, like, if you don't believe in where you're leading, then your team's going to fall apart. That is super important. We talked about ego. We talked about teamwork a little bit, which kind of falls into decentralized command, because we kind of moved into how you interact in your relationship, your personal relationship. But being able to interact with people and make sure everybody is kind of on the same page. We need to prioritize and execute plans appropriately. So if people don't know what you're actually doing, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm dealing with that right now. I mean, Paul, I'm sure you understand like the role of a business analyst. And when the business is coming to you and they don't even know what they want, well, how I can't code I don't know. Like, so it's very important to have that in consideration. And Vidar, you've got your YouTube channel up, right?
Yeah, the only things that are being posted right now are these live streams, but very soon we'll be putting some more content on there. You were talking again, a person that doesn't know, your customer that doesn't know what the outcome is. You guys had touched on it earlier. I think Tarl did with the target. You need to know what your goals are, what your targets are. And in fact, when we come to a goal, we are going to achieve. If we don't know what our goal is, the universe is going to decide what our goal is and push us towards that. And sometimes that's not what we really want. So it's very important to take ownership, find out what your goal is, and then you can strive to achieve that goal. You can achieve that target. In fact, if you want to look at, you said you come from a religious background. If you look at the definition of sin is simply missing the target. So if you don't know what the target is, you don't know what you're aiming for.
Oh my God! If you don't know yourself, you're sinning every day. I actually kind of love that concept. Wow, that one's going to stay with me. I've wrote down some of these things, and that's another one I'm writing down. I love that, Vidar.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Paul, let's move to you. What are your final thoughts, and what's going on with you?
Oh, I was just thinking about what Vidar was saying about if you don't believe in the product, you can't sell it. You know, if you don't believe in the mission, you're not going to be able to execute it. One of the things I learned from my coach Mark when I was first starting working with him and Nikki was that very concept, right? You have to believe in whatever program that you're offering to people. And there's ways of getting in alignment with that. And when I say get in alignment with it, I mean subconsciously get in alignment, like where you believe in your own stuff and believe in the mission, whatever. And one of the things that he said to do, which I found very effective, is sit down with a journal and write out 100 reasons why, 100 reasons why, the mission is a good mission, 100 reasons why the mission's going to succeed, 100 reasons why your product's the best, 100 reasons why your product's going to help people, like whatever, you can write out these 100 reasons why, whatever. By the end of that list, you're pretty much going to be in alignment with it. And so that's actually one of the things I do that every morning now. It's one of the things I do when I get up early in the morning is I get up and I spend about 10 minutes writing out my whys. And then I spend 10 minutes writing out my what I want out of life in the present tense as if I've already had it. I do that every morning. And I found that it's very therapeutic. It's actually gets me juiced up in the morning to really, want to take the day on when I do that kind of stuff. So that's something that people could do. They could take away that sort of thing.
I like that because it's like the reverse of because for me, when I write something down, like that's why I've got my notebook next to me. Like I make sure to write things down at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But to write things down at the start of the day too, I think is phenomenal. I love that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I do when I'm writing out, the way, I want my goals and how I see my life in the present tense. Sometimes I'll just do it as a list of sort of affirmations that I just repeat. And when I'm done writing out that page, I'll sit there and actually read it out loud with, some oomph, some gusto, some intention, some passion behind it. And I'll actually, by the time I'm done reading that page, I'll be, really amped up. And I'm like, all right, let's fucking go do this shit. So it's something that you can do, especially if you're lacking motivation and you don't know where you want to go in life. Like, sit down and figure out, what you want your life to look like in 10 years from now, 10 years. And what kind of activities do you like doing? Do you like hiking on the weekends? Do you like fishing on the weekends? Like whatever it is, and sit down and write that out as if you've already achieved it, and you'll find that when you do that enough, your subconscious will try to connect the dots, because you'll actually be visualizing this sort of thing. And your subconscious can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so when it believes something is real, it'll try to make it real. It's a pretty fascinating concept. And then going back to the extreme ownership stuff, I highly recommend that book. It's definitely a life-changing book. And like I said at the beginning, I talk about it in chapter 8 of my book, Psychology Paradigm. It's a part of the Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence series. Look for that on Amazon and Audible. Right now it's the only essential skills book that's available on Audible. But that's going to change, because I'm helping Thor with his next book, which is all about the superhero inside. And man, being able to work with Thor to get that done, help him out, because he's having a hard time, with computers these days, and being able to read. A lot of his medications are impacting his vision. So I'm like, don't worry about it, man. Like, let me do this for you. So I'm getting it finalized tomorrow. I'm going to get it all formatted for paperback, hardcover, and Kindle. And then I'm going to get with Huds, and we're going to put a cover together for that sumbitch. And we're going to have that out here in the next couple of weeks. That's going to be the next book in the Essential Skills series. And I'm looking forward to it. And you guys are going to love that book. And then I even told Thor, I said, hey, what are you doing for the audio? And he's like, I'd love to read it if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to. And I was like, I'll do that for you. If you want that, I'll do that for you. So I might actually be reading that book, and we might actually have 2 of these books that are on Audible, which will be good. Other than that, guys, tune into my channel. On Monday, we're going to be talking a lot of Glenn's guys are tuning in. A lot of you religious guys are going to love my episode on Monday. Some of you guys might actually fucking hate it, but there's a lot of women out there. And this is something that I run into regularly in my coaching business, where women have been raised with a very negative paradigm when it comes to sex. Even though scripture says that sex is perfectly acceptable under the eyes of God, if you're in a loving, committed marriage, like married relationship, like sex is a good thing. You should go forth and multiply and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of, not all Christian sects, or denominations preach that negativity, but there's a lot that do. And women get raised with this really negative paradigm around sex. And even when they're married, they can't get outside of that paradigm. And it causes really bad tension in the relationship, because that sex is needed for the 2 people to feel close and loved and connected. Right. So I'm going to talk about that. How, for men, if your wife is that prude in the relationship, and you're not getting the sex you want, and you're in this, committed Christian relationship, how do you get your wife to turn around with that? So that's what Monday's episode is going to be about. Tune into that on Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Tune in live, and then I'll sign off in the chat. You guys will love it. Or
sounds
hate it,
good.
Whatever. Glenn's channel hates when I get into religion. Because I talk about some of the negative paradigms that religion programs into people, and that's not really helpful. Religion itself isn't a bad thing. It's good to have something to believe in that's higher than yourself. I truly believe that, but sometimes the teachings don't necessarily match the actual scripture, and it's some doctrine that's some
man. That is the
priest
truth.
years ago threw out there, and people believe that shit, and it messes them up, you know.
Oh, you have nailed it. The modern religion will say all kinds of things that the scriptures don't say, and then they'll say that the scriptures doesn't allow things that the scriptures very clearly say they do. So it's good to get back to the ancient writings and promote that truth. I will be tuning into that. That sounds like a fantastic show.
It'd be good. And
Good
then let me drop a link here for the Psychology Paradigm book. You guys will like that too.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Very much appreciate you. Charles, let's go to you. What are your final thoughts and what's going on in your world?
Well, like I said, I've got some things I'm planning right now. I'm working with a couple different people. I can't talk about it publicly yet, unfortunately, but I've got some stuff in the work. We'll say that. And in terms of like final thoughts, people underappreciate sometimes the wisdom of simple sayings. You know, things like measure twice, cut once. You know, when you were describing before, Huds, problem solving and getting shit done. That's an old trade maxim, and it holds up under any circumstance. Do the research, verify that research, and then make the cut, right? When you're going to cut a board, that's how you have to do it, right? But a lot of people don't apply that broadly to other things. Like if you're going to come up with a plan, you need to prepare a plan, a first draft, proofread it, and then execute the plan. If you don't do those steps, learn plus adapt equals win, as my acronym goes. That's why. Those are the steps. You can solve almost any problem with that equation. But the thing is, a lot of people want to try to make it more complicated than it actually is because of emotion and making excuses and wanting to overcomplicate things, right? And it goes back to the wisdom of this saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. Say it again. Failing to plan is planning to fail. If you don't have a plan, you don't have a mission, right? So you're just doing whatever. You just have wishful thinking and daydreaming. And as you know, Paul said, your subconscious doesn't understand the difference between fantasy and reality. So if you spend all day daydreaming and fantasizing, you're going to feel pretty good about your life. But what are you actually getting done? Not a whole lot. That's usually the problem that most people find themselves in. So make sure that you come up with a good plan, and then you can execute that plan, and you will get results if you persist. But you have to be able to tackle those problems proactively and without falling victim to your own emotionality about the problem and your impatience. The biggest thing that people struggle with is their impatience with things, right? They also don't understand other people's emotions or their own. I talk about emotional intelligence all the time, which is like a faux pas in red pill space. It's like, oh no, here we go with the woo-woo stuff. But the thing is, if you don't understand how you're feeling, like for instance, when Lindsay asked me that question, oh, you seem bitter. It's like, no, I'm not bitter. I'm resolute. Yes, people have hurt me. But the thing is, I understand my feelings about it. And I speak with passion so people actually listen to me. If I was just here, yeah, guys, so this is the truth about the world, nobody would fucking listen to me. So I say it louder so the people in the back can fucking hear me, right? And what do I get? Oh, I got one heckler in the back going, you're too loud. It hurts my little ears. Cool. Yeah,
Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Yeah. Who hurt you?
How dare you?
Misogyny.
You know, but once again, am I hung up on it? No, I'll speak about it as a point of example about how you can do better in life. Like that's the key thing. How can you do better in life? What do you want? We ask guys, you know, like, do you even know what you want? And they don't know. And then they say, oh, well, I want this, that, and the other thing. What have you done to get it? And they're like, I did that. And it's just like, well, you don't want it bad enough, do you? You just don't, you don't know what you want, and you don't want it bad enough, right? Like you don't really know. So you're just floundering. Don't be that person. Be that person that wants to solve your problems and is willing to be wrong in order to achieve that goal. Because do you want to be right or do you want to win? You're going to find me? I'm Viking. I'll be around.
Good you guys stuff. Are lucky that we don't give Tarl a fucking Monster Energy drink. You'll be fucking punching drywall here. You know,
breaking 2x4s.
Oh, I love it.
Mind.
Hey, you said it, man. If you don't know what your target is, how are you gonna hit the mark? It's just gonna be luck at that point. You gotta know what your target is. You said it in a few different ways, but that's what it comes down to. You have to know what your target is.
Yep. Know what you want and find the proper way to go after it. And as Jocko would say, get it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Know yourself, and then you can better understand others. That is absolutely true. Guys, this has been an absolutely fantastic discussion. Gosh, just go read the book. That's my final thoughts. Just go read the book, because truly it will help you not just in your personal relationships, your professional relationships, and your relationship with yourself. And I think that's most important. When you can fix the relationship with yourself, you will see how things expand. And it's absolutely wild. Outside of that, what I got going on, so we are open for enrollment if you are interested in joining my men's community. And I'm putting the link in the chat right now. Gosh, we had so many great conversations recently. And we just had a webinar that we combined alongside Beer Club and alongside the Dragons here. And we were talking about financial literacy, like how to kind of set yourself up. And Laurent hopped in, which was absolutely fantastic. He added some extra layers of information, and we're just delivering value and trying to help you live your best life. I mean, because isn't that what you deserve, right? Like everything requires work, but you know in yourself, like you deserve a good life. And that's what we're helping everybody do. Outside of that, we are continuing on with our Thrive in 25 series. So I'm going to drop the YouTube channel there for you guys. The Thrive in 25 series has been, dude. No, okay. Now I'm just like getting excited. It was super cool having our good friend Thomas Edwards, the professional wingman. He's been on multiple media publications. So he's been on the Steve Harvey Show. He was just on Tamron Hall. And we had a really, really interesting discussion on evolving masculinity, which is what the entire book series is all about. So if you want to dive deeper into that, definitely go check out that discussion. And then just recently, 2 days ago, we had a stream with I can't even speak still. Dollar Cost Crypto, Miguel. If you guys don't know, he does a lot of work with Charlie from Cultivate Crypto, and they teach guys like how to understand markets and make money in crypto. And all they've done is been right. So definitely check out that, because it's talking about what is actually currently going on. We've seen a lot of crazy things occurring with this market and with Trump's moves, but they know how to navigate it. So definitely take a look at that. But with that, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you guys so much. Definitely tune in next week. Peace out.
Raven wings as our guide. Skies of fire and ash, hearts begin to clash. But it's time to rest.